Yes, the polls.
Kamala
Shall we get?
polling.
Shall we get
Yeah.
to that? What
Yes,
is that?
let's do it.
Okay, let's get to it.
Start with the good.
Yeah, start with the good, and it's impressive that in swing state polling, Kamala Harris is now getting what many are saying, and the reason they're saying it is because this is the first real polling that's been done since the debate, a debate bounce. The lead nationwide from the Economist poll tracker has her ahead by 4.5 points, which is not nothing, you know.
Was that a national poll?
That's a national poll. Now, the reason you'd look at a national poll at all, obviously it's not critical when it comes to the Electoral College. That's really how things are decided. But the reason you'd look at a national poll is because of, and this is the thing I really would underscore when it comes to all polls, you look at trends. Polls, I think, you know, we've all heard it. Well, they're a snapshot of a moment. You can't put too much stock in them. The way they do polls is, you know, is outdated, even as they've tried to, you know, bring them up to speed. A lot of that is true. Maybe all of it is true. But what I would say is that you can look at trends in polls, and you can see that in trends, Kamala Harris continues with strength. And that may offer us clues as to how this election may go. Now, again, these polls are sliced and diced a million different ways. The YouGov poll after her debate reported that 50% of debate watchers thought she won. 25% thought Trump won. ABC scored at 58-36 for Harris. That was just a poll about who won the debate. That doesn't tell you what anybody's going to vote for. They got a huge financial boost, the Harris campaign did. But the way these polls are coming down show that Harris is improving by 4 points while Trump remains steady. So of 12 fully pre- and post polls, Harris has improved her share by 1.2 points on average. Trump has worsened his lead by 0.3%. So the margin has moved, if you want to think of it that way, by 1.5 points in Harris's direction. And the views of Harris, this is the general disposition toward Harris in these polling results, they keep improving. So before Biden dropped out, her net favorability rating was minus 17 points. This week, according to 538's poll aggregator, positive views of her equaled negative ones for the first time since mid-2021. Mr. Trump, by contrast, he's there on the right of your screen. He is at a minus 10. So the good post-debate news for Harris comes not without some cautions. You know, again, a lot of this is popular vote, general polling, and that's not how our elections are decided. And state-level polling, I'd say the best state-level polling still has everything at a dead heat, and the really best state-level polling is done by who? It's done by the campaigns. Mm-hmm. If you want to see real money thrown at a poll, you need to really get into the campaigns themselves. Oftentimes, when you see a media poll, it's not that they don't try to make it accurate. It's just that the resources that are directed toward those polls can oftentimes in no way match the resources that are directed by the campaign. None of this matters, says Randy. I love anything that starts with none of this matters. I mean, it really is wonderful. Yes. Nihilistic view of the world. None of this matters. It's all gone. The whole, where are we going with none of this matters? I haven't read it yet. None of this matters. Hillary was essentially a sure thing in 2016, lost. Gosh, is this, I'm going to have to find out like this, that Hillary lost? Wow. I mean, you couldn't warm me up. And it's been a mess since then, says Randy. Randy with more good news. Thank you.
It's never been anything like this.
Of course you're right on some level, Randy, which you always, Randy is always right on some level. That's what I would tell you. So yes, there can be big surprises, but I would say polling shifts and trends do suggest an increased favorability rating and an increased support for Kamala Harris. Now, you can say, as Randy just has said, and cite, as Randy just has cited, the Hillary Clinton scenario. Hillary Clinton's trends were not what Kamala Harris's are. Her overall rating was, that is to say, the polls of likely voters were in the same space. So I don't dispute that, Randy. But what I would say is that the trends, and this is why I wanted to share this stuff with you, the trend lines clearly favor Kamala Harris in a way that Hillary was not favored. None of this matters. We're all going to be dead eventually anyway. Thank you from Trevor. And let's just hope we can get some drops in before that, right? I mean, it's just...
I wish I had his accent.
Yeah, there you go.
And this is
Trevor
another
with more
poll
good news.
Another poll I know that we were looking at is the swing state poll, and Egolf says Harris is up 5% in Michigan and Philadelphia in yesterday's Quinnipiac poll.
Yes. I have that in our rundown. I'm looking for it now. It's very hard for me to locate on location here. I don't quite have the assets that I have in the main studio. But
as you look for that, I'll read this comment, which, Americans expect this now. Jose says, the Supreme Court will decide. We don't need to worry about it. They'll fix it in the end. So, it's the way our elections go anyway. Why bother voting?
Sadly,
People don't leave my rallies.
Yeah, it's true. It's true that the Supreme Court is the way we decide.
We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
Right. The rallies, of course, between the rallies and the Supreme Court.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan.
Election day less than 2 months away. Trump and Harris are campaigning in swing states, hoping to win over undecided voters, which is, again, this weird, I don't know, show me 5 families that haven't decided. Although I have heard and seen, and I'm sure you have as well, all these people who go, I just can't make up my mind. I saw an interview with someone, it was a woman who said that she had all these concerns, and essentially Kamala Harris had addressed all of her concerns, but she said, I'm just not sure I can trust her to actually enact. I'm thinking, wow, really? And then she said, I'm leaning toward Trump. So essentially, she'd already decided she was going to vote for Trump. Harris had actually addressed the things she was worried about. Even, in a list of priorities, you can say, well, I'm not seeing enough in the way of specifics. I think that's something that, as I've suggested, it's the hook on which you hang any kind of objection, just generally, right? Oh, I'm just not seeing enough specifics, so I'm going to go for Trump, whatever. So that's essentially what she was saying. And I thought, wow, it just exposes you as a Trump voter looking for an excuse to state your support of Trump. Anyway, they put her in this category of those who are undecided. So
That was really good. Alan says, breaking news. This is the most optimistic I have ever heard Mark sound about this election.
Look, people don't come to me for optimism. They come for realism. So Harris got a boost in her polling numbers after the debate. And the Quinnipiac Battleground Survey, which was released yesterday from Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, does have some positives. Those states have voted similarly in recent presidential elections, as noted, and this is probably the path to victory for Kamala Harris, right? We've talked about this for months and months, even for when we were talking about Joe Biden. So Harris, in the 538 poll, is favored to win 226 electoral college votes. Trump favored to win 219. If Harris carries the 3 states in that Quinnipiac poll, she would win the 270 electoral college votes needed to secure victory. Now, this poll, again, is finding Harris leading Trump in each of those 3 states. She led Trump by 6 points in Pennsylvania, 51% to 45%, 5 in Michigan, 50% to 45%, and 1 in Wisconsin, 48% to 47%. All three states have been solid for Democrats going blue in every election since 1992, except for when they backed Trump in 2016. So separate polling from the New York Times that was released today also supported Harris's lead in Pennsylvania, showing Harris leading Trump by 4 points, 50 to 46. The Times also found the race a dead heat nationally, which is sort of interesting because, in essence, we've been looking at the swing state polls that have all been a dead heat, and nationally, Harris has been leading by a few points, as you're aware. So this is odd that the New York Times aggregator is saying we see the general polling nationwide as a dead heat, but we see in the swing states a 4-point lead from Harris. The Quinnipiac poll also asked respondents to weigh in on which candidate they believe would be better on key issues, including the economy, immigration, abortion, and preserving the democracy of the United States. Isn't it wild that we have to ask which candidate would be better at preserving the democracy of the United States? I promise you they weren't asking that question in 1990, or 1992.
I mean,
the result, yeah, go
when
ahead.
You talk about a presidential election and presidential candidates, that should be a given. I mean, we shouldn't even have to ask that question. They have to stand on a stage and promise to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution is the United States. So to have to ask if a presidential candidate is a supporter of the Constitution, would protect the Constitution, is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's. I agree. I mean, it's one thing to have it built into the boilerplate of your the oath that you take. I get it. It's boilerplate. I mean, Trump takes that oath. Any public figure takes the oath associated with the legislature in the House and in the Senate. Judges take the oath. All these different oaths. Sheriffs take it. Cops take it. These oaths, right? The oaths mean nothing. I mean, it's pro forma. It's just one more thing that's done. Yeah, But the idea that you would poll on it is even a level of crazy, which we have reached in America. I mean, there was a legitimate coup attempt, and that is why they ask this question. And by the way, the guy behind the coup attempt is running for president again. I mean, it is utter insanity. We have 4 years of evidence with Trump. Who has to ask? There you go, says Katie. Right. God bless America. The end, says Jim Slayton. Wow. Yeah. God bless America.
Right. I blame you.
No. I'm just looking. People from S-hole countries looking at USA as crazy, says No Contendo. Yeah, that's so right. Thank you for the $2 super chat. It is true that there is a quality of the U.S. that we've never had before, which is third world. Again, one of the real shining lights of American democracy, to call it that, republic, representative democracy might be a way to put it, is the transfer of power. I mean, it really is something that is held out as that which has distinguished us from many other nations. Now, I have to say this, because we have this myth of American exceptionalism in every way. And I'm sorry, I didn't see the Louise thing. I saw it up there for a second, but I was just in the middle of a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. I read the No Contendo. Thank you. Who is producing this show? I don't have that drop with me.
Well, I mean, you were still talking about what No Contendo had to say, so I thought it was more applicable to keep that one there.
Oh, okay.
I blame you.
Okay, there you go. You're right. You're right, Kim. I'm sorry. So really, I apologize. Albert, do you have an apology? Anyway.
I'd like to apologize to the Mark Thompson Show community.
I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American
community that might be offended. Louise says, if the economy is your thing, thank you for the $5 super chat. If the economy is your thing, equals Trump Airlines, Trump University, Trump, Soho, vodka, steaks, ties, casinos, etc., all bankrupt, equals you are whack if you vote for the draft dodger. Okay, well.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Yeah, one of them was not from Luis, though. In any case, what I was going to say is we have this myth of American exceptionalism, which is somehow that our transfer of power, which is generally seamless, the candidate and the party that loses gracefully and graciously turns over power to the team and to the people who have won. There are even, as you know, budgets that are not insignificant that are dedicated to that transfer of power. They're transition teams that are put in place, and those transition teams are there to facilitate a smooth running of the republic while the transfer is going on. So they put money, they put manpower, they put resources into that. Now, we're not the only country on earth that does that. I mean, you can go across the world and find many others that also have a smooth running in that way. So I would suggest to you that what we've seen with the J6 situation was something that really threw us into another category completely, where all of a sudden there would be no transition. And as you know, Trump's people didn't aid in the transition. There are two weird things about the Trump administration. The first is that they didn't think they were going to win, as you know. I've mentioned the book to you before. I would recommend it to you still, the Michael Lewis book. I think it's called The Fifth Estate. The idea somehow that there were those resources, those assets, as I've just suggested, directed toward a transfer of power to help along from Obama to Trump, the new administration. And they were, there it is, the fifth risk, thank you. And what he discusses there is the fact that there was no one home. There was no effort made to really produce the kind of meetings, the kind of systems and strategies from the Trump people designed to meet the meeting systems and strategies that were already set up by the Obama people to bring them into power with a transition that would then be smooth. You know, who's going to run the USDA? Who's going to help with those things that the government is charged with doing, protecting the public in many different ways? These are things you have to be read in on. You have to be brought up to speed on. There was no one. When I say no one, I mean literally no one attended the meetings that were set up to transfer and transition the new administration. Well, then Trump comes to power, right? So it's all a mess. They assign some of these major institutions of government that are charged with protecting the public safety, like the USDA. It inspects your meat. It inspects a bunch of stuff that is related to your health. They had no one to run it, the Trump people. They just didn't expect it. Once they got things going, he gave it to lobbyists. He gave it to his friends. He gave it to people who were big donors, as you're aware. And then at the end of his administration, what does he do? He attempts to hang on to power through an illegal coup, through substituting in the government everybody he could to try to maintain power, and then ultimately by violent takeover. So when we talk about Trump and protecting democracy and that question that's on the poll, who do you trust better to maintain the U.S. democracy? It all of a sudden takes on a context of reality that we just have never had to confront in this country before. No. It's utterly absurd, but it's a reality.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.